Thank you for coming today. We're going to get ready to start. Hello? Hello? Hi. Thank you for coming this afternoon. We're here with Common Ground Rising and several of our coalition groups. Cochiti Lake came in with a whole bunch of people. Cochiti Lake Indivisible, hearing from you. 350.org.
Yes.
Sierra Club. We Are One River. And many more. We were going to start today and with a blessing, and are you going to do this here? What happens? Can you come forward? Hi.
To ask Cleo Otero to do it.
Okay. Hi, Ashley.
Oh, Cleo.
Yate, she Cleo Terry, she Tanasani show Catachini, but she's changed. That's why Dashanella is Anya Dashache. Hello, my relatives. My name is Cleo Otero. I am of the Diné Nation and of the Hopi tribe as well. I am of the Tangle clan, born for the Red House clan, and my paternal grandparents, my paternal grandparents, maternal and paternal grandparents are of Hopi Nation and of the Metal people. And that is how I'm an Indigenous woman. Today, I've been asked to say a short prayer for you all for opening. Beninachan hits Gilana, they need caught on the end on his Zardon here. And he hits the Zimbic edge, Benachan, Nasta, they need caught on this. Had it odd and he caught the Junction Moss Company, yeah. As Chinep and Yep and Nacha, the Ninja and Gosh and Lanch, and they need caught it beat it. I heard a beneath saw it up in the seats, Hodo, and he cut out on his torture. Yacht 8 or less on your head. Now stay Kahib not a dinner. He must die, you should hold the honey, he not a dinner, she didn't gosh to Lily. Ni has load, but Jape the deal, ni hop at the deal chisel, he done hit the dog skills. Ebin not at the nest in garden, Lily, Nelson. The Jodo left on the other nest in gosh to Nation Nelson. Has a nice sleep or late on the other sleep. Has a nice sleep, has a nice sleep, has a nice sleep, has a nice sleep.
Thank you. We're gathered here today to talk about the oil and gas ordinance for Sandoval County. Thank you very much for your good words today and our prayers to get us forward in a good way. We need a lot of those good words because this oil and gas ordinance is pretty terrible. And so we need to be able to put the type of energy into this as a coalition group to tell the county commission just what it is that the people want out of this ordinance. So what we have done is we have hired a legal counsel for us. Her name is Andrea LaCruz Crawford, and I'm going to turn over the mic to her. And we're going to first start talking about what the issues are with the oil and gas ordinance, transparency, the lack of records, and some of the IPRA and OMA violations that we feel have been those acts violated in this issue.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrea LaCruz Crawford. I'm an attorney and I'm assisting the Common Ground Community Trust in looking into some violations of the Inspection of Public Records Act and the Open Meetings Act. There have been written requests for records that were filed over a year ago. The rule requires that those records are released, or an explanation for why they are not released is provided within no more than 15 days. That is a clear violation. There have been 4 of those that we think are clear violations, and then we have about 7 complaints that we know of right now regarding the Open Meetings Act, including complaints that people were locked out of the meeting on September 21st, 2017. So under the Open Meetings Act, all persons who wish to attend a public meeting have to be allowed to enter. And if the space is not large enough, the County Commission has a duty and responsibility to table that meeting and reconvene in a location that's big enough to house everybody. More concerning are some allegations that we have yet to confirm, but are looking into that oil and gas executives and industry persons were permitted to enter the building after other members of the community were locked out. And at this point, we're just looking into this. We're trying to make sure that there's transparency in what's going on and that the County Commission is taking these concerns into account when they look at adopting this ordinance, and that they provide adequate time and opportunity for the community to address health, safety, environmental, and cultural concerns regarding this matter. Thank you.
And those cultural concerns come with the tribal consultation and the Repatriation Act that have not been addressed in the ordinance process. And many of the pueblos are very concerned, many of the tribes in Sandoval County. Right now, I'm going to call Derek Lenti up to speak. Derek, I know Derek has been called upon many times. Thank you very much for coming up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here on another chapter in this episode of what we call the fracking story in Sandoval County. I am from Sandia Pueblo. I am the representative for New Mexico House District 65, and I am privileged to have the opportunity to represent several areas in Sandoval County. The town of Bernalillo, I represent 7 pueblos that include Sandia Pueblo, Santa Ana Pueblo, San Felipe Pueblo, Santo Domingo Pueblo, and Cochiti Pueblo, and Zia Pueblo, and Jemez Pueblo. I also represent 5 Navajo chapters, and my district goes clear up to the Colorado border to the Hickory Apache Nation. Wow. And all the folks that I've talked to in regards to this issue, I've not heard one single voice in support of oil and gas.
That's right. That's right.
If anything, I have heard the concerns of my people, and they've been loud and clear that there needs to be much more investigation on this ordinance prior to it being passed.
Right.
And that's why I'm here. I'm not here on behalf of any special interest group. I'm not here on behalf of anyone who's asked me to be here outside of my interest. I am here for the people that I vowed to represent in House District 65.
Thank you.
In saying that as well, I'm also here for those that live outside of my district. I'm here for the folks that live in Placitas, Rio Rancho, Corrales, all those other places that are still very important to me because, one, being a Native American in Sandoval County means that I have nowhere else to go. The people in Sandoval County, the Pueblos, the Navajo Nations, the Apaches, The town of Bernalillo, the people that have lived here on this land since time immemorial, have been raised here, their roots are deep, and they have nowhere else to go. Oil and gas companies can come in with the money, extract, and the next day they can be gone and wipe their hands clean of anything they ever left behind. My people, our people have to live with those circumstances for the rest of not their lives, their children's lives, but for the rest of the existence of how long their people have been here. And as history has told us, the town of Bernalillo, the pueblos on the way up the river, our people have been here since time immemorial. So our roots are deep, and I intend to continue to stand not in front of all of you, but on the sides of all of you to help each and every one of you understand, articulate to the best of our ability what our options are and how we need to play perhaps no longer defense on these issues, but start playing some offense.
Yeah, Derek.
Let's start playing some offense. Let's start holding these people accountable for the decisions that they are going to be making on our behalf. Let's have them be accountable to us, the public. And I said before, and I'm going to say it one last time, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. When the people lead, the leaders will follow. Let's make that a theme, and let's continue the course. And if it's been tabled until November 16th or whenever the date has been set, we will be back here again.
Yes, we will.
We'll be holding signs, we'll be united, and we will again hold these people accountable inside this building. Thank you very much for being here.
Jack Torres. Mayor Torres from Bernalillo is here, and he's going to say a few words for us.
Thank you so much. Difficult to follow the representative, and publicly want to thank him for his leadership, not just towards the town of Bernalillo, but towards all of us. Please give him another round of applause. His is an example of leadership that we can all be proud of. His is an example of government that we can be proud of, and we need to keep fighting this fight. I also want to thank all of you who've come to every single meeting. I need to, I guess, give my confession at this point. I've been to some of the meetings and I haven't been to all of them, but it hasn't meant that I've forgotten this or I haven't been trying to go through other channels to get the word out. I'm frustrated like all of you. I'm frustrated that people are expected to go to a different room and not be able to comment. I'm frustrated that the county commission can't find a bigger venue, and I've already offered one to them.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated that people aren't being heard. And I think the biggest frustration is this isn't a small issue that's going to impact us for a month or 6 months or a year. I look at my almost 2-year-old grandson and my 1-month-old granddaughter, and whenever I get a little burnt out and think, well, maybe I should skip the meeting today, I look and think about them and say, no, I need to go there. And that's one of the things that motivated me today, to be perfectly frank. And that's what this is about. This issue is major. This will impact all of us, but generations to come. And I find it astounding that we can't get the word through that this can't be a fast-track deal.
Right.
Economic development isn't inherently good, nor is it inherently bad. But it's up to our government to put in place protections for all of us and for generations to come. So I thank all of you for being here. I thank you all for the energy, and let's keep up the good fight.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Maya King-Slattery from the Sierra Club. She's a fellow that's working. She's done amazing work for us this week, helping us with the press releases and just a lot of good background work. So thank you, Maya.
Yeah, Maya. Hey, Maya.
Thank you, Lynn, for all your work. It's really great to see this turnout because if you're like me, you are concerned about the issues and about the lack of transparency, about this oil and gas pro-industry ordinance being fast-tracked, and just about what's at risk. So we're here today to protest the county's brazen move to fast-track an oil and gas ordinance that is written by industry, for industry, and against the public's will.
That's right.
It completely lacks any public health safeguards, protections for water,
and ignores meaningful tribal consultation. It allows one sole staffer to approve drilling permits without public notification. No public input and no public comment. This is not acceptable, and we must push back and fight when our communities, our environment, and our water are under attack. Creating this ordinance has been a sham process all along, devised to line the pockets of commissioners who are beholden to industry. At the September 21st meeting, 75 people were prevented from entering a room and from giving public comment. Poor oil and gas lobbyists were given front row reserved seating.
That's right.
And despite this, the overwhelming majority of comments were against the ordinance. And why? It's because it's dangerous. It gives industry a free right to drill without consequences. And we have to go after those commissioners who are going to vote for this ordinance. We can't let that stand. And there are no protections for preventing the contamination of an aquifer that nearly 1 million people rely on. That's the Albuquerque Basin Aquifer. There are known cases of water contamination directly linked to fracking. Companies that use fracking are exempt from major provisions in the Clean Water and the Safe Drinking Water Acts. And this means the public has little recourse for when and if a private well or a water resource becomes contaminated. And the New Mexico Oil Conservation Division has admitted it does not require companies to drill and test monitor wells to prevent groundwater contamination. An industry may tout that it creates jobs, but the truth is it's a boom and bust industry. When oil prices plummeted, the oil gas dependent city Farmington suffered major job losses, 6,000 since 2014, and Farmington still suffers today. So your voice matters. Commissioners need to hear from you, and our government needs to work for all of us and not solely just industry. And the commissioners need to slow down this process. They need to engage in meaningful tribal consultation. They need to listen to what the public wants and what they've been saying all along, and develop a well-balanced ordinance that puts you first. Thank you.
Yeah, they do.
Thank you, Maya. I'd like to bring up one of our Turquoise Trail Alliance, Karen Yank. Come on up.
Yeah, I was in Santa Fe and coming down the freeway through the traffic was a little arduous, but I'm glad I made it in time. The Turquoise Trail Regional Alliance recently expanded and became a much larger alliance covering 20 different groups. And I'm here representing that entire group in our support of several of the groups that have spoke before me in their work that they're doing to try to slow this down and get a decent ordinance. I've been working in environmental preservation for over 14 years, and this is hands down the weakest ordinance I've ever read in my entire existence. It is more or less an invitation to oil and gas to come and be able to freely work without any consequences. I don't understand our commissioners why they would be for it, because it gives them absolutely no teeth to protect us later down in the in development when our water gets contaminated or other issues come up. There's nothing there to take them to court or do anything. It leaves the county very vulnerable too for lawsuits. So it's not good for them and it's not good for us. And I'm absolutely adamant that we stand together and we demand a strong ordinance, not just a few amendments, but a strong ordinance.
Yes.
And we deserve that.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going through our list of folks here, I would like to call up Mark Leclerc.
All right, Mark.
We are One River.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here, and thanks to everybody with Common Ground Rising that's been working so hard for this. You know, there's a lot of common ground in there. We got Susana Martinez finding common ground with Kim McQueen. Yeah, we got Trump finding common ground with Tillerson. We got the Koch brothers finding common ground with the Tea Party. We could do a lot better out here, uniting.
Yes.
And I think we already have a clear vision that can bring us all together. And I think that that's from the resurgent spirituality that we're seeing right now that holds our earth sacred and recognizes that we're all interrelated, we're all connected. And when we act from that place, we have the moral clarity to say, not only when my water is sacred, all water is sacred. When I stand to protect my 7th generation, I stand for everyone's 7th generation. So I was really heartened to hear Mr. Lente say that maybe we don't need to just be defensive anymore. Maybe now it's time to go on the offensive.
Yes.
Because we're at that moment. This is an urgent moment for the planet. You know, when the San Juan area was first developed under the Nixon administration actually declared it a national energy sacrifice zone. But we know now that fracking is the dirtiest fossil fuel that we have when you take into account the methane that is released by fracking. It's dirtier even than coal. So we don't know anymore where the sacrifice zone is. Is it a cancer cluster on the res, or is it a cancer cluster at the refinery? You know, is it an unprecedented wildfire on the west coast, or is it an unprecedented storm on the east? So this is a moment of urgency, and this is a beautiful, powerful thing that we're seeing just forming right now. But this is just the beginning for us. It's got to be just the beginning, no matter what happens in there, whether tonight there's some talk about an ordinance or in the future. An ordinance has got to be just the start for us. And I want to ask everybody tonight to hold tight to that moral clarity and to keep pushing, because we really cannot have fracking anywhere. We can't have it anywhere. Thank you.
Keep it in the ground.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Keep it in the ground. Keep it in the ground. Benton Howell.
All right, Benton.
Hey, Benton.
Hi, everybody. I'm representing, to some extent, 350 today, and I'm a member of Elaine's organization, the Common Ground Rising. What I would like to talk about just for a moment is that we have this really, obviously, very weak ordinance that is just not what we wanted at all.
No.
And the thing is that the people that wrote this ordinance had very little experience in this kind of thing, and they relied on the oil and gas industry to get a lot of their input.
That's what they did.
But why didn't they come to the experts that we have in our group? And we do have some really good experts in this group. Bob Wesley, I notice, is here today, and I'm really glad to see him.
Where is Bob?
And he's upstairs already. So that's one really nice thing to see. And Mary Feldman, obviously very experienced and has a great need to be having input into this. So that's what I see as one of the big problems that this commission has done, is that they haven't paid attention to where the expert really lies. And so they've gotten something which is just not good at all. So the way I look at it is, it's so obvious that for all of us to understand why we didn't have a bigger impact on this ordinance, because they wouldn't let us be part of it. They wouldn't let us be part of it. When we invited two scientists from the Physicians of Social Responsibility, they didn't let them speak. The commission apparently came into the process with no intentions of allowing us to influence the income, and yet we are the ones who have the biggest stake in the outcome.
That's right.
they allowed the oil and the gas industry to have reserved seats at the table of this so-called democratic process.
That's right.
This was definitely a way to offend the citizens of the communities they represent. What kind of democracy do you think that is? It sounds more like a banana republic to me. They are supposed to be our public servants, but it was obvious that the hundreds of the people who showed up at these meetings every time, who wanted to protect their homes and schools from the dangers of fracking, these people deserve to have their opinions taken seriously. And they were not just in the majority, but every time they were by far the majority of people attending. In fact, you only have to go back to the Sandridge application more than a year ago to see how many of the citizens of the nearby communities were originally against the company from Oklahoma trying to get its application approved. And we know that Sandridge wanted special consideration with regards to the initial information meeting to be held with residents of the county. And we know that Mike Springfield waived that hearing.
Right.
And he's still there. But there is something else which needs to be said about this unfair and ill-thought-out process we have all had to endure with the commission. The county needed to create a task force of citizens that would actually have a legitimate part in drafting the ordinance, because if they had, one of the first things they would have heard was that many residents would have pushed for emphasis on solar and wind rather than putting all our eggs in the fracking basket. The problem is that Republicans don't believe in the science of global warming. And since the commission is 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat, they don't even know or care that the earth is warming and that many problems are related to the emissions of CO2 and methane gas. They don't realize that their grandchildren are in danger from global warming. We need to start over and rewrite this ordinance and expand its scope to include about equal solar energy and wind with the oil and gas wells that the commission is so excited about.
Yes.
The new start. That new start could be a tremendous move in the forward direction. This is what needs to be our real direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Bars here from Cochiti Lake.
I can't speak with the microphone because of my
Oh,
electrical
okay.
sensitivity, so
All
I'm
right.
just going to have to use the old-fashioned way. I'm Craig Barth from Cochiti Lake Indivisible, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here.
Speak on the mic.
I can't use the mic. I can't use the mic. But I also like to thank the people from Peña Blanca and Cochiti Lake who've shown out in force today to show just how passionate we feel about this issue.
Yep.
It is in our backyard.
Yes.
This is in our backyard.
Could be in your front yard.
Yeah, that's right. You know, one of the things about when you speak late on any agenda is that just about everybody else has said what you plan to say. So this is going to be totally impromptu because there's been some extraordinary speakers. Derek, awesome.
Yeah.
I think, by the way, Derek is going to be a governor. And a damn good one. So, what I'd like to say is that ever since November 8th, 2016, I feel like I've been living in Middle Earth. And I feel like the forces of Mordor have been unleashed across this great nation. And it's darker and darkest. And Indivisible, as an organization, is dedicated to resisting the Trump agenda. And I'm sure everybody here knows that what we're battling in there is just a part of the Trump agenda.
That's
right.
That's true.
So what I'm here to say on this occasion is keep this, we're going to fight this battle, we're going to win this battle, but this is a part of a much larger campaign. And the next stop on this campaign is to work with our legislators this coming winter and introduce some legislation so that we don't have to do this in every single county in this state.
Yes.
We need a state that supports the environmental needs of our people, the health needs of our people.
That's right.
So I'm call on all of you to remember this nice warm day now remember this in February when it's cold and when it's hard to walk around Santa Fe because of those chilling winds. Come on out, bring this heat in your heart, and let's take the campaign to the state level.
Yes.
It's time to do it. So, and then there's another step beyond that, and that comes to next fall, and who we elect to lead this great state as our governor. Right? And we're going to need a governor that enforces the existing statutes that are on the books.
That's right.
And when we do that, we won't have to be doing this battle every single, county by county. So we're a part of a great cause, and I want you all to just stay together. Call your constituents. Bring your groups together. We're only going to win if we're all together in one big alliance.
Yes.
That's right.
Together we win. Yes. Thank you very much.
Javier Bender.
Thanks, Elaine. Well, can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. Hadn't prepared any remarks, but thanks, Elaine. I'm a big fan of yours and a big fan of everybody here because I feel like we all are on the right side of history.
We are.
Fracking, oil and gas are about the past. They're about the 18th century and that kind of technology. And the sign I'm holding here is part of my work now at New Energy Economy, because we believe that our future is in our natural resources like solar and wind. And it's just a matter of time before we transition into those renewable sources of energy. We're going to get there. It's just a matter of time. And you all are on the right side of history because we know that these kinds of extractive industries are hurtful to our people. I've been spending a lot of time up in northern Sandoval County with the Counselor chapter and Ojo Encino. Those communities deal with it with some of the worst impacts of extractive industries and their air quality. Not far from the Counselor chapter, there was an explosion last year where communities had to evacuate for several days. Kendra Pino is a good friend of ours who heard the explosion and her whole family was devastated by that. But those kind of consequences we don't experience with renewable energy. And that's our future. And it holds not just environmental promise for our state, but economic promise. New Mexico can outsource so much energy here in our state, and there's so much to look forward to. But we just got to get over this kind of hump. And as was just said, this is part of the Trump agenda. That is something that we're working to overcome. I just ran for office myself. I took it on in Albuquerque, ran for city council, didn't make it, but I saw it as an important fight because it was part of taking on the existing powers that be here in New Mexico. Oil and gas is one of those powers. Big real estate is another. But the power of the people is what matters most. And we saw a great boost in turnout in the city election. We've got a great candidate running for mayor who I think is going to pull it off and hopefully turn Albuquerque into a national leader for renewable energy. Tim Keller's a good friend of mine. And there's just so much to look forward to. So I want to leave you all with a chance because I feel like what we're doing here is important and you all should enjoy this fight and find joy in the struggle. So I want you to repeat after me, okay? I'm going to say one word and then 2 words and 3 words and you repeat after me. I'm going to start with I. I believe. I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we will. I believe that we will win. 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 Thank you.
We were told today that this ordinance is going to be tabled until November 16th. They informed the Pueblo that it was tabled. They did not inform us. And we had sent information to them, a letter to them asking for a venue change, and they ignored that as well. So they've ignored all of our requests for public records. They have violated some of the Open Meetings Act, and they ignore our correspondence trying to find out what's going on, even with the ordinance today. So it's ongoing. The problem here is ongoing, and we need you to help us keep up this fight. And thank you very much. We have one other person, Steve Verchinsky from the Green Party is here, and we're going to have him speak, and then we're going to have an Indigenous voice to speak here, and then we'll do a closing. So we have also another.
Right, Steve?
Thank you. My name is Stephen Verchinsky, and I'm the chair of the Green Party, the Albuquerque metropolitan area. And why are we here today? New Mexico is part of the entire global environmental battle regarding the use of fossil fuels. Climate scientists, considering the impacts worldwide, now look to this as being a tipping point time period.
Yep.
Some say we have gone beyond it, and others say the next 3 years we're either going to find ourselves as a species concerned about the long-term survival on this spaceship called Earth, or opting for self-directed suicide. We are currently one of the nation's largest producers of fracked oil and gas, primarily because of two existing basins. We have the San Juan in northwestern New Mexico and the Permian in southeastern New Mexico. There is some of the San Juan Basin in Sandoval County, and is currently in production. I'll get to that in a little bit with a statement by one of the indigenous from the area, and I would like to go and read to you also. But the new basin of interest to the industry, with thousands of acres already in lease, is this Rio Grande Basin with geologic structures that indicate shale is here to be fracked. The issue to all of us here is the unknown. The Rio Grande Basin is not like the Permian and San Juan Basin.
That's right.
A basin is a concave surface that holds things in and doesn't allow for much coming out. Here we lie in a rift valley, which geologists still have little information, speculative as to how it's formed. Suffice it to say that the aquifers can be separated from one another or not. We have no idea. And we don't even know if the fault lines connect them or not. So there's that idea as well to take in consideration. So prudence here dictates that we don't frack here, at least for the time being. One may also say with the climate impacts, that resource should be left in the ground indefinitely.
That's right. Amen. Keep it in the ground.
Because there's much that we do not know. The Bureau of Geology at New Mexico Tech, who I've spoken with at length and have gone down to pick up materials from them, originally to show the county here that this is a complex basin and we shouldn't be going ahead and doing anything half, you know what. So what we have missing here is a couple of items. One, we have the aquifers that are not characterized throughout this entire basin. So we have no clue. Others, the lack of data for the stratigraphy or the fracture zones, or even the thought about what would happen in terms of earthquakes here. Michael Timmons down there is working on the mapping, and with regards to the water systems, Dr. Sherry on there has told me about the lack of data on the aquifers themselves. So any of this predicates our ability to have surface land uses having water that's clean and unadulterated with chemicals from the fracking process. So how can we move forward? Those studies will not be available to mid to late 2018. It's an outrage to go ahead with a permit process that not fully consider the impacts on the water supply and ultimately for us to have our surface occupancies.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
That said, this is one of the most critical basins in the state because of the population densities. Surface impacts from air emissions are already responsible for increases in asthma rates throughout the country. Overall, the oil and gas industry dumps more than 9 million tons of methane and other pollutants like volatile organic compounds into our air each year. VOCs and methane venting and leaked nitrogen oxides formed by gas flaring, and engines at these natural gas facilities react together to form ozone smog. Methane also worsens the climate change, resulting in hotter weather and stagnant air. The warmer conditions, in turn, worsen our ozone smog levels. And from that, we end up having this inhaled ozone smog can impair lung function, trigger asthma attacks, aggravate bronchitis and emphysema, in some cases result in premature death. How many? Throughout the United States, we're looking at 750,000 summer asthma attacks on children. Children are missing some 500,000 days of school nationally each year. 13.6% of New Mexican children from 2011 to 2012 were diagnosed. That is some 47,000 children now who have this disease. 2.2% had no medical health insurance. 8% couldn't afford their medications. If we are at the bottom of the barrel in regards to education, what happens when more miss school and fall further behind their peers? As for adults, 1 million adults are forced to restrict activity, 14.3% in New Mexico versus 13.3% nationally. So we have about 150,000 people in our state right now that currently are undergoing this difficulty. Our highest prevalence of asthma is already in our metropolitan areas. No modeling, no responsibility for these surface impacts. The risk factors in a 2014 study of the burden of asthma in New Mexico by the Department of Health looked at the survey smoking, obesity, socioeconomic status, indoor environmental exposure, and occupational exposures. But guess what? What do you think was missing out of this program? They never even studied the areas where fracking is taking place to see whether or not they were responsible at all. The discussions weren't there. So there's that with regards to my concerns. The others that are out there are with regards, and this is a statement from C.C. Riley, who's been working with the transitioning of labor from coal to other occupations. She's indigenous, and she says the Chaco Canyon area situation is getting worse. This is clearly colonial behavior. A short while ago, New Mexico Senator Tom Udall had Pruitt here, both on a horseback tour of the wonders of Chaco Canyon. Evidently, Pruitt simply used the tour as no more than a recon expedition to see what, where, and how much of the area could be exploited for Trump's purposes. Those purposes clearly include keeping non-white indigenous people in their place.
That's right.
Despite Navajo Nation being its own internationally recognized country, including having the prestigious Fulbright Scholarship, which is only for international study. In addition, there are the nasty little secrets of methane fracking social impact, methane poisoning, and sexual assault and rape. Thanks already documented, thanks to support by efforts of the Sierra Club, is the fact that Navajo children whose schools happen to be just a stone's throw away from too many of the fracking sites where pipes are never capped because it's not simple to do. They're coming down with asthma. Methane fumes are seeping into Navajo schoolhouses. Teachers are closing their schools after a half a day, sending children home to breathe some fresh air. The methane fracking fumes are a direct cause of those children not only losing good health, but also losing half their precious education. This is a symptom of what I can term constructive genocide, causing a specific ethnic group of people to die by setting up a perfect storm of circumstances to accomplish those deaths. Sexual assaults and rape are also documented. Those are having to do with the fact that we end up having in those areas man camps.
Right.
And
Not local jobs.
and it's not just that, but as I was discussing and listening to her this morning, they actually go out in the way, and it's called, and it's pretty despicable, but they go out hunting. They call it a Pocahontas. And there is no once the women are impregnated and they go to get their rape kits, there is absolutely nothing that is happening with regards to holding and accountability.
That's right.
So this is the damages that we're looking with embracing this particular way of getting energy. I also would like to go ahead and say to Elaine, thank you. And
Yeah,
for
Elaine.
all of us, I'd like to go ahead and say thank you, Javier. And I would like to say just one small button, but I think it sums up what most of us would say. Please say it all together. No fracking way! Thank you.
Thank you. I have two more speakers. I would like to have Peter Benavides, or
Peter D.
Peter D.
Thank you. My name is Peter D. Benavides. Everyone calls me Peter D. I'm a progressive Democratic candidate for governor. I am not here to make this about me, unlike Donald Trump. I want to make it about you. And first of all, I want to say what you're doing is amazing. And then I'm going to tell you something that you may not like. It's not enough.
That's right.
The people on the inside are deciding who gets to sit at the table. And the only way you're going to be able to invite anybody in is if you get a seat at that table. We've got a bunch of commissioners that are not representing people, and President Obama said it very clearly. Get a clipboard, grab a petition, run for office. Every single one of those people should be challenged, and one of you here should be the ones running for those offices. That's going to make the difference. We've got some good people who've done this. Javier did this in the city council in Albuquerque. I'm trying to do it statewide. You've got a good representative here who understands what it means to represent people. Unfortunately, we have many representatives who only understand what it means to collect and not to represent. And they need to be challenged regardless of which party. And I hate saying that, and the Democrats hate me for saying that, but if you do not represent people, then what are you doing in government? And that change has got to come from you. So I'm asking all of you, get a petition, grab a clipboard, and do what it takes to make our democracy a democracy. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Carolyn Houses, she's our last speaker of the day. I'd like to make a couple of announcements before she speaks, because she's going to close our meeting, our rally today. We have been told that we cannot take the big signs in. They will allow us to take the little signs in, but they're not really sure about that either. So the big signs have to stay out, but the little signs can come in, and that's what we're told, right?
Elaine.
Yeah, I'm just going to clarify. So they're just citing that the large signs can create a tripping hazard is what they're concerned about.
Yeah, right.
And so they have requested that we do not take the large signs in. They do not at this time seem to have an issue with the smaller signs.
Kathy Ruck is running against Holden Rose.
Thank you. Carolyn Houses. I'm going to tell you, Carolyn Houses have been here since the beginning. Yes, she has. She's been standing with us from the beginning, and she's become a very dear friend. And I thank you so much for your support. We talked about this last night in our meeting. And what we do here is we put out a blanket to ask for some donations. We're moving forward trying to figure out what our legal strategy is. And on October 28th, we're going to have a meeting at the Loma Colorado Library at 10 a.m. To talk about what our options are, especially after this meeting here and moving forward. So at Loma, Colorado, the 28th of October at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. So I hope all of you can attend that. Here.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Carolyn Houses. I am Navajo and Taos Pueblo. I have
lived in Albuquerque for 12 years. I was born here in New Mexico. I'm a citizen, and I'm also a member of the American Indian Movement of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is a beginning donation. We're going to make this grow. This is just to get the ball rolling and for you to connect with each other so that we can make this happen. Everything counts. Thank you, everybody, for giving whatever you can. A quarter, a dollar, 10, 20, whatever. Thank you. And it's going to Common Ground Rising to help with our legal fees and any other fees that we have. But the most pressing is the legal fees. I've been attending the Sandoval County Planning and Zoning and Commissioners meeting since spring of 2017. Like many of you here, we see ourselves as protectors of our sacred Mother Earth, air, and water. From what we observed, from what the American Indian Movement of Albuquerque has observed, we have become very concerned over the expansion of oil and gas development, including the fracking in Chaco Canyon, the Rio Grande Valley, and other areas. Due to our spiritual connection, we cannot have our Mother Earth turned into a commodity to be recklessly exploited. That's right. Right. As a result, AIM Albuquerque submitted a memo mid-June as public comment to strongly assert that tribal consultation must be initiated between Sandoval County and the pueblos of San Felipe, San Ildefonso, Santo Domingo, Zia, Santa Clara, Laguna, Sandia, Santa Ana, Cochiti, Jemez, the Navajo Nation, and the Jicarilla Apache tribe. Yes. We are not alone with this action. Tribal members of these nations and our allies have all said the same thing. Within the memo that we submitted, we also support a 5-year moratorium to stop any further oil and gas development expansion until an environmental impact statement has been completed. This, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, the Historic Preservation Act with other laws, professional studies, scientific studies will help us shape a better and safer ordinance. As stated, the fracking expansion will impact tribal land, our way of life, water, groundwater, water aquifers, air, health, safety, cultural, and our sacred sites. One result of the October 4th meeting between San Felipe Pueblo and the Sandoval County Commissioners was the erroneous claim that the county made that, what? Tribal consultation occurred.
No. Outright lies.
San Felipe's quick response informs us that the county has not yet even answered the 9 questions that San Felipe submitted about the 9-page Stafford Ordinance, oil and gas ordinance. What gives?
An outrage.
Also, I wanted to mention the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights, which was developed to establish international legal norms
that member nations agreed to gear their policies towards. Article 27 states that it indicates that nations shall establish and implement in conjunction with indigenous peoples a fair, impartial, independent, open, and transparent process when it pertains to our laws, our lands, traditions, customs, and land tenure systems. To me, this is saying that we're human. Tragic that we always have to assert this. Oftentimes, indigenous people are the tests of our democracy. Let us stand together to show that we are a democracy. We are a democracy of the people, and that we have power. To conclude what I've just said, we want tribal consultation. Let me hear it. Tribal consultation! We also haven't had any citizen consultation. So, we want citizen consultation! And the last one, we want a moratorium. Yes, And I am thankful to be here with you, my brothers and sisters. If you're like me, you're just beginning to learn about the dangers of fracking. Or you might be like others who already know about this and are inspiring us to become involved. As we make our connections with others, we know that our most common need is water. Our common need, our common ground, and we are rising together. Thank you, Elaine, for being my first contact about this and giving me information and inspiration, and I'm inspired by your persistence. Mini Watoni.
Thank you so much. We have 350.org that wants to make a small announcement here.
So I'm just so inspired by seeing all these people out here today. You're all wonderful, and thank you for being here. We, 350, are holding a speaker series night on Monday evening, this coming Monday, at 6:30, and we will be showing the movie Split Estate, which a lot of you probably have already seen, but it is about the results of fracking, things that you may not know about fracking, how they get the mineral rights and what they can do to property owners. It's a pretty impactful film, and I recommend all of you, if you can't make it on Monday night, at some point rent it and check it out. It will be at the Peace Center, the Center for Peace and Justice in Albuquerque on Harvard, Monday at 6:30. Following that, there were a number of us that went out to the Counselor and Naizi area a couple of weeks ago. Daniel so graciously gave us a tour of many of the fracking sites, and Javier was there, and many of us from 350, and there were a couple of journalists from Santa Fe, and I highly also recommend that you do that, because it is astounding, it's shocking, and it will change how you feel about this and how you move forward in talking to other people. And we'll be showing a short film of what we experienced, what we felt afterwards, and then we'll have some time for question and answers. So I hope you can all make it.
Thank you. We heard in the last meeting that there were people that were turned away from the front door. And what we would like to do is to please come up and give us your name if you're here, or if you know of people who were turned away at the last meeting, please give us your name and contact information to Andrea LaCruz Crawford. She's our legal counsel. And because we would like to document the violations of the Open Meetings Act. And just coming forward, giving your name, saying you were turned away. If this happens again, you know, we'll document this even further. So it all helps us in the long run. Yes?
If it happens to you ever again, take a photo on your phone of you being turned away, so you have some documentation of it.
Yes, we have to be able to document this by photograph as well. So please help us do that. Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming out. It's time to go in. It's time to start holding our commissioners accountable. Thank you all for coming.